Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for logging on and attending today's virtual program. My name is Matt Schumann. I am on the programming team here at Cary Library. Before we begin, please let me know if there are any technical issues which I can try to resolve. Questions can be asked through the chat and we can answer them as they go along, as the program goes along. This program is also made possible by generous donors to the Cary Library Foundation. With us today is Chef Katie Walter, owner and operator of Two Aprons Cookery. Katie has been teaching classes out of her home for 8 years now, first in London and now in Lexington. She will discuss some of her favorite Middle Eastern recipes and demonstrate how to make hummus and pita bread. So please now welcome Katie Walter.
Hi, welcome everyone. Hope you're enjoying, if you're in Lexington, I hope you're enjoying the beautiful weather. After this call, I know I can't wait to get outside, and I think it's like 80 degrees today. So anyway, hope everyone is well. Welcome to Middle Eastern Cooking. We are going to be making homemade pita bread and homemade hummus, which are two of my favorite. I mean, they're really standard, but really good Middle Eastern foods, and they're ones that I think people oftentimes buy. You know, you buy a pita from the store, buy a hummus from the store, and they're super easy and economical to make yourself. So I hope you're inspired by this class to try making it on your own. So we're going to start with the pita. And yeah, and as Matt said, if you have any questions throughout the class, just there's that chat feature. You can type in your questions and Matt will feed them to me throughout the class. So anyway, we are going to start by making the dough for the pita. And we're going to start with, it's a yeast dough. So we have our yeast. We're going to start with warm water. So you want lukewarm water, which is like pretty much the hottest water you can get from your tap. If you have a kitchen thermometer, like this electronic thermometer, this is really good to have so you can actually test the water, because if it's too cold, it's not going to activate the yeast. If it's too hot, it can kill the yeast. So you want that nice warm water. So I'm going to take 1 cup water. I'm going to get some from the tap. And since I don't want to run my tap that long, I heated some already in a pot. So I'm going to add some of this pretty warm water. I think it's like 160 degrees to my other water. And let's hope we end up around 105. So I'm going to check the temperature. Not hot. More water. Getting there. I'm just going to heat that up a little more. So I'm going to take the water here. While we're waiting for the water, I will add the other ingredients. So we're going to do a tablespoon of sugar. This is just regular granulated sugar. And this helps to activate the yeast. So 1 tablespoon sugar. 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And yeah, I encourage you to use olive oil as opposed to like vegetable oil or other oils that don't have a ton of flavor, because the flavor of the olive oil does, even though it's a tablespoon, it does come through in the dough. So olive oil. Nice and hot. And yeah, this is a micro thermopen. And yeah, it's great, but you also could just get a digital thermometer at Bed Bath & Beyond, and that are a lot more, less expensive, but this is kind of the Cadillac, and it works great. I love it. So it's called a thermopen. Okay, so that's great. We're right at like 103. And I just have to make sure I have 1 cup. Now in the recipe that I gave Nina that you'll get after the class, I have the measurements by volume, but I also have by weight. So a lot of times when people do baking, they like using a scale. So you can also use a scale. I gave the measurements for that. Okay, so continuing on, now we're ready for our yeast. So I have the measurements. You can use a packet if you buy yeast in the packets, a packet, or I like buying it in the jars, and then I just stick it in my freezer and it lasts a really long time. And then I'm not always running out of the packet. So we're going to do the equivalent of one packet is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I'm going to measure this out. There's 1 teaspoon. There's 2. And a 1/4.
Someone just asked if you can use instant yeast.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, I was even reading too, if you are out of yeast, because it has been hard to get throughout quarantine. I had bought that way before. I've heard you could also sub baking powder. So if you're in a bind, you could always try that and see what happens. But if you have the yeast, definitely use the yeast. So here's a teaspoon of salt. And then for flour, so you, excuse me, I use all-purpose flour. I recommend using mostly all-purpose flour for this, but if you want to add in a little bit of wheat flour, you can add in a 1/2 cup of that in the beginning. So I'm going to start, this is some nice wheat flour, like that, and I'm going to get a 1/2 cup of that.
Someone had another question. Can you use bread flour?
If you do, it's probably, it might be a little thicker. I don't know, you could probably try though, yeah. But I would recommend, if you have all-purpose, use the all-purpose. So again, this is a 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour going in. Now we are going to whisk it together. And it's very liquidy. Once that's whisked, we'll add the remaining flour, which again is going to be all-purpose. So we're going to do 2 cups of that. So move this stuff out of the way. So if you're scooping up flour, a lot of times, like I said, I like to weigh it, but if you're scooping, kind of give it a few good scoops to loosen it up. Then get a big mound and then just level it with a knife to get your measurement. So that's 1 cup. Do the same thing again. Now it's time to mix the dough. Now you can take your hands. I prefer to start it with a spoon because it's very liquidy. And later I'll get my hands involved. We'll mix this together. And it's a pretty like wet, sticky dough in general. If you do bread baking, it's not as firm as you would have for like a sourdough or that kind of thing. It's a little bit stickier. But it's not difficult to work with at all. So like, Nina asked me, we were talking about different ideas we could do for classes, and she liked the idea of the homemade hummus, and she asked me about pita, and I had never made pita before. It seemed like too much of a pain, something I could just easily buy at the store. So I made it for the first time about a month ago, and I have to say it tastes so much better than anything you would buy at the store. It is so delicious, and yeah, it's really not hard to make at all. So, okay, so now it's come together nicely, and I'm going to get my hands involved. So I'm trying to pick up all the little bits of flour that are at the bottom. So once we have almost all the flour, it's pretty much all incorporated now. Now it's time to knead it and form the glutens. So we can either knead it for 10 minutes in here and just do it kind of, gently, loose, or we can speed it up and do 3 minutes and get serious on the counter. I prefer the speeding it up. So for 3 minutes, we're going to really go at it. And, when we start out, it's kind of loose, craggy is the term you see a lot in baking. And after 3 minutes, it's going to be kind of shiny, satiny, and it'll be cohesive. So I didn't put any flour down. It's sticking to my hands a little bit, but that's fine. It's not sticking to the counter. And I would, at this point, I would not put down any flour because we will be using flour later on the surface later, and we don't want to add too much additional flour.
There was a question about can you use an electric mixer with a dough hook?
Yeah, you probably could, because the dough hook does the kneading, so yeah, you could. But yeah, this is a good workout. You know, you get your arm muscles going. See, about 3 minutes, and I can see now it's already like it's starting to get a little shinier, more cohesive. But yeah, so homemade pita, it's so good, and it's best if you eat it right away. So it's one of those things, like if you're gonna be using it for like make some falafel maybe, or I like making little lamb patties with ground lamb and adding some spices and cooking those up, putting those inside with some yogurt sauce. If you want to do that for dinner, I recommend just making it right before dinner time. Because yeah, when they're right out of the oven, they're so good. Yeah, and the goal with these is to bake them to get that puff. So, you know, when you cut it open, there is a, you know, you have a pocket. But even if when you bake it, you don't get the pocket for whatever reason, because you know with baking, it's a art and a science, and things can go wrong, and there's differences in temperature and all that kind of stuff. Even if it doesn't puff, it's still going to be good. Okay, so we got about another minute here. So you guys get the feeling, but yeah, I'm using my palm to move it. You can kind of slap it. It's sticking together nicely. Okay, so I think this is good. You get the idea. Got it ready to go. And now we are going to let it proof for about an hour or two. Although I made a batch earlier. So with the magic of television or video, I'll show you my proofed one, but we're going to put it in the proof bowl right now. So you want to take a fairly large bowl because it hopefully will double in size. And again, rising, it's depends on the environment. So you want a warm, like room temperature, a little warm, not hot environment, so it'll rise. So if it's warmer, it probably will rise faster. So if it's a warmer area, about an hour of rising is probably good. If it's a little cooler, you might want to go up to 2 hours. So I'm going to pour a little olive oil in here, just about a tablespoon, and that keeps the dough from sticking. And then I'm going to take my rounded dough, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to roll it around so it's coated in the olive oil. And so there's some on the bottom, there's some, it's all coated, you can see. And then I'm going to top it. And then on top of it, we're going to put a damp tea towel or kitchen towel. I'm going to use this other towel. So towel, we're going to just put it under the faucet, get it damp, and squeeze out any excess water. And just lay that on top and let it sit, like I said, for an hour or two. So I'm going to go swap this out with the one I made earlier. And you can see, we can compare how it's risen. So 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. So I was having this rise in my bedroom in a corner where like the heaters are, and it's a nice warm little area, because I have the windows open here and there's a bit of a breeze, so I thought it would rise faster there. So what time is it now? This has been rising for just about an hour, and you can see what it looks like. And this is what it started as. So you can see it's almost doubled in size. That's what you want. Let's cover this. And now we can get to work with our dough. So we're going to start, first of all, we're going to want to heat up the oven, get the oven going, because you want it to be nice and hot. I do it at 500, and I have a pizza stone, so if you have a pizza stone, heat that up as well. If you don't have a pizza stone, then just use a regular, flat cookie sheet. So get that in the oven. So I put that in the oven before class, and that's heating now. But if you were doing it, real time at home, this is the time you heat your oven and your stone or cookie sheet. Okay, so we got that done. Now, one of the fun parts of baking is punching down the dough. So I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's kind of fun. You take your hand and make a fist, and it's kind of like, see, kind of like a good Play-Doh. So you just punch it down. You can see what it looks like there. Okay, so now that we've punched it, we are going to transfer to a lightly floured work surface. So I have my flour on hand. You can spread that out. And we are going to turn this onto the surface. And since I use the olive oil, it just comes out nicely. It's not sticking. And we are going to cut it into 6 pieces. So if you have a scale, kitchen scale, you could weigh each piece just so you know each piece is equal, or you can just estimate, and you'll have some that are probably a little bigger, not a big deal. So I'm going to cut this down. Cut that into thirds. So this will make 6 pieces. Now you could also, if you want like smaller pieces, you could make it into 8. It just, the size will differ. I wouldn't go any bigger though. Like I wouldn't make 4. It's going to be way too big to get it onto the cook sheet. So 6 pieces or 8 is good. Okay, so now we have each piece. And now this is kind of a fun part. We're going to make it into a ball. So you take this, you kind of roll it. You kind of put your hand over it. And you don't apply a ton of pressure, just loose pressure. You just want it to get into a ball shape. So that's pretty good. So we got our ball. Okay, set that aside, and then we'll keep doing that. See, and when you do the ball, sometimes it ends up like the bottom looks like that. That's totally normal, so don't worry about that. You can kind of try to squeeze it close. So you can see, obviously, like my cuts were not exact. Like I have one bigger, one smaller. But again, not a big deal. Yeah, this one's definitely bigger. Okay. There's one. Yeah, and this is fun. And, if you have kids around, like they would enjoy it, helping to roll it out. It's kind of like playing with Play-Doh. Another round. And last but not least. Yeah, sometimes they tend to get in that ball shape easier than others. This one's kind of. Okay, so now we have our 6 balls. I'm going to set them aside. And we're going to, again, use a damp towel and let them rest. So you want to give them a little room. As they do this rest, they will expand a little bit. So this is the damp towel I used before. Just putting it right back on, it's still damp. And we will let that sit. Now, while that is sitting, it's going to be like 10 to 20 minutes. We'll just do 10 minutes for this class. So I'll set the timer. And while that is resting, this is a perfect time for us to make our hummus. So yeah, I'm not sure. Here, let me get my food processor. So it definitely helps to have a food processor if you're making hummus. But if you don't have a food processor, don't worry. You could use a like a handheld immersion blender. You could use a regular blender. You might have to add a little bit more liquid to it. So like a little more water, a little more olive oil, a little more lemon juice, a little more liquid. You can kind of judge that when you're using that. But I find the food processor is the best. So we're going to start out. We're going to use chickpeas, garbanzo beans. If you don't have these, you could also use a different kind of white bean. So that would work. But traditional hummus is made with chickpeas. So we're going to start, open it up, and then give it a good rinse. And by rinsing it, you get kind of that sliminess off, and you also get any like extra salt off. So I'm going to rinse it. I just have a colander, pour it over the sink. Give it a good shake. So right in here. And it doesn't have to be like bone dry when you put it in here because we're going to add water to the hummus anyway, so a little water gets in, that's totally fine. Okay. Then the other thing that really makes hummus is tahini. So tahini is sesame paste, so from sesame seeds. They press it out, and it kind of looks like peanut butter. There's different types. Like this is a more liquidy variety. The one Trader Joe's sells their own brand. That's a little thicker. So think of it like peanut butter. Like there's some peanut butters you get that are a little thinner than others are really thick. So same thing. But yeah, it's really good. It adds a nuttiness, like bitterness. So it's, you will use it, if you buy some, just you use it for your hummus. But you can also use it to make tahini sauce. So you just take a little of tahini, water it down, add a little lemon, and it makes a really nice sauce to put over like roasted vegetables, grilled meats. Yeah, it's delicious. So that's another thing you would do with your tahini. And you can keep it, whatever you buy, like read the jar, but most of them are shelf stable. So you just keep them on the shelf and they last a really long time. Just kind of like water.
Someone was curious what brand tahini that is.
So actually, I got this. I was in Israel in February, squeezed in a trip right on time, and I bought it there. So this is from Halva Kingdom, Halva Kingdom at Gmail. So I'm not sure if they sell this in the States or not. But in the States, like I usually just get the Trader Joe's brand because I like Trader Joe's products and I'm there a lot. But if you're local to Lexington, in Watertown, there's a lot of markets. I think they're Armenian, but Middle Eastern markets, and they sell really good tahini. So if you want to take a trip, go there and buy their hummus. That's their tahini, and any of their, like they have a lot of prepared foods. Oh my God, amazing! But that's another really good source for tahini. So we are going to add our tahini now. We're going to do a quarter cup, so just a little bit. Now, if you don't have tahini, you could substitute, you could leave it out. You could substitute peanut butter if you want. I've never tried that. I've read, it's another nut butter, so that's an option, or yeah, any other nut butter. The other thing too, I was reading when I was researching for this class, there's recipes that have melted butter, because tahini has, the fat and the richness, and butter obviously has that. So that's another thing. You could substitute, 6 tablespoons of melted butter. And I have that in the recipe. I have that as an option, just if people don't have tahini. That's something you can try. So now we're going to add our olive oil. Again, a 1/4 cup. Yeah, and hummus is something that's so easy to make, and it's a lot less expensive than buying it, and it tastes way better. The other thing too, in the recipe, I give an equivalent if you have dried chickpeas. I think it's like 3/4 cup dried chickpeas. You obviously have to cook them and get them soft, but you can use dried chickpeas as well. Now we're going to add a little water. This is a 1/4 cup of water. And we're going to add some garlic. So 1 clove of garlic. Let's see, okay, so I have my garlic clove. And I'm going to chop off both ends. And yeah, even though it's going in the food processor, you still want to chop it because the food processor might chunk, because everything else is pretty soft. Like everything's going to be done before the garlic would be chopped. So I just recommend chopping it by hand. And yeah, to peel it, I always, I take off the ends, give it a little whack. That helps the outer peeling come off. So now we have our garlic, and again, I'm just gonna chop, I'm gonna slice it into thin slices, and then I'll go over it again. You could also, if you have a garlic press, use your garlic press for this. That's totally fine. So that is ready to go. Again, if you really like garlic, you could add another clove. This gives it like a nice garlicky kick. Okay, a little bit of salt. And again, you want to hold back on the salt just because sometimes the chickpeas, they can have some salt. When you rinse it, you get that off, but it could still have a little bit. And same thing, you know, the tahini can have some saltiness. So I just go a little easy and then add it what I need after the fact, just because I don't want it to be overly salty. So I would go up to a ½ teaspoon at this point. And then for a little bit of heat, we're going to use cayenne pepper. And again, if you like it, like more heat, add more. I just do like a little sprinkle so it's not too hot. And then fresh lemon juice. You definitely want the fresh lemon juice. It gives it a brightness, nice citrusy notes. And to do lemon juice, I love using this enamel tool. So you take your lemon, you put it the cut side down in there, and then you squeeze. And then I always take it, reshape it, put it back in, because there's always more juice. And I just keep repeating that until it stops yielding juice. So that's pretty good. And again, we're going for 3 tablespoons. So I think let's see where we are. Great, perfect. Okay, now we are ready to mix this up. So let me get the top. It's going to get loud for a minute. So here. So let's open it up and take a look. It's getting nice and blended. And we'll just wipe down the sides at this point. And then I could also do a taste test to see if I want to add a little more salt or, you know, lemon juice, olive oil, whatever. Oh, good as it is. So. Now at this point, everything's well blended. When I tasted it, there was a little, it wasn't perfectly creamy. There's a little texture to it. So that's kind of up to you. If you want a little texture, you can leave it as is, or you can just keep pureeing it until you get the, if you want it super smooth, just do it longer. So I think we're good. I like how the texture looks. And I will spoon it in a bowl for serving. So this makes about 2 cups, so it makes a pretty good amount. And it stays in the refrigerator, I don't know how long it lasts. I would say at least 3 days, probably more. And again, this is really nice with the pita. We'll eat it with the pita we're making, but you can put it out with vegetables, crackers, anything like that. It's a really nice dip. Or you can use it, if you're having falafel, you can put it on with the falafel. What else do we have hummus with? Veggies, in sandwiches, any of that. So if you're serving it as a dip, it's nice to make it look pretty, and we do that. Like you could toast some pine nuts, that would be nice to put on top. I'm just gonna put some olive oil and a little bit of paprika. I'll just drizzle it with some olive oil. And then paprika, and this is just Hungarian. I don't like using this. I like smoked paprika for other recipes, but that would be a little too overpowering. It's just a little pinch. You could put cayenne pepper on it if you want a little more heat. And then, yeah, so you have your hummus. It's lovely. And then we're going to set that aside and we'll eat it when our pita is done. So the timer went off. We were letting the little 6 dough balls rest. So we are ready now to start baking our dough. Let me put this away. Get this out of the picture. So now we've let it sit, and we're going to work 1 ball at a time. We're going to press it into a disc, use a rolling pin, and then put it on the sheet. So, like I said, I have a pizza stone that's been heating in there for about an hour, and you want it to be really hot. That's one of the keys to success. You could also just put it on a flat cookie sheet, but again, have that heating for about an hour. Now, you also can make pita, you see it on a stovetop. So you would use like a cast iron or a really heavy skillet, heat that really hot, cook it on that. The only thing with that, I find, I've tried it before, I feel the oven gives better results. Also, there's always like some little bits that stay on the pan in between, and it kind of then you end up getting some burning. So I think oven is way easier than stovetop personally. Okay, so let's peek. So yeah, you can see they've expanded a bit. So let's start. I'm going to start with our little one first. Now we have a little bit of flour. If it gets too sticky, you can add more. So before I start rolling it, I'm going to flatten it into a disc. And that just helps kind of keeping it even. If you just start rolling when it's a ball, there's more of a tendency for it to get in a regular shape. You kind of do this a little before, you can kind of control the shape. I'm making sure it's not going to stick. And now I'm going to roll it out. You don't want it to be, this is the key. I give a side like it should be about 7 inches, but really the key is the thickness. You want it no thicker than 1/4 of an inch. If it's too thick, you're going to just have, it's going to be more like naan bread. If it's too thin, you won't end up like with a pocket. So you want it that 1/4 inch is really, or even, it can go like 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch is what you want. And I'll show you what I use. I keep this little ruler in my gadget drawer because a lot of things when you're cooking, it's like, cut these to this thickness or that. So I always like to have that. And you can use this as a reference. And I only use it for food, so I'm going to line that up and see where we're at. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So I think this is good. And you can see the dough is kind of bubbling. It's so the yeast has worked. So now we are going to put it in the oven. And I find it easy is just use your hands and press it down. Put it in with your hands. So I'm going to move the camera so you can see me do this. Okay. So I'm in the bottom oven. I'm going to take this. So I'll show you. So here, I'm just lifting this up with my fingers. It's stuck a little bit, but it's coming off. Okay, so you have it in your hand. And then the oven. And I'm just going to put it right on the pizza stone. And it's laying flat. Close that up. And here, you can kind of see it. Now it's going to cook for like 2 to 3 minutes. It cooks really quickly. And you want it just to be like lightly browned on top. You don't want it to be like charred because then it'll be too crispy. You want it to be like, the goal is to get this nice, soft, kind of pillowy pita bread. If you do like having that char, because sometimes you will see on these kind of flatbreads, nice little char, I would do it on the stove after the fact. So make all your naans and then you can just put it on a hot iron and get some color. So yeah, so it's starting to puff a bit. And the goal is it's gonna like really puff. So yeah, I see little pockets of puffing. Ideally, the whole thing will puff up. But again, it doesn't always happen. And I just want to show, like if it doesn't, you still have really good bread. And there should be enough of a pocket with just those little puffs to stuff it too. Oh, I just see, do you put anything on the pizza stone? No. The pizza stone, because it's, you heat it, that's the whole thing with pizza stone, you don't put anything on it. It's so hot, nothing sticks to it. So like I make pizza on the pizza stone. And yeah, I put my dough, like for the pizza, like I floured this really well, put my dough on here, and then I just shove it in there. So yeah, you don't need to put any oil or anything on the stone. Same thing if you were using just a cookie sheet, you don't need to put oil on there either. So we're at about the 2-minute mark. So it says 2 to 3 minutes. So this is the time you want to look and just see if it's browning. It still looks good to me. We're just going to give it a little more time.
Someone asked, how do you clean a pizza stone?
You don't use soap. You just use hot water, and you don't even use that much of it. So after I've cooked with it, like for the pita bread, I'm probably not even going to clean it because there's really nothing that got on it. When I do pizza, there's always like little ingredients that get stuck. So like the next day, because it takes a long time. It takes a long time to heat up. It takes a long time to cool down. The next day, I'll take, sometimes I take a scraper. Sometimes I just take a, like I have this kind of bristle, like Brillo pad, not Brillo pad because that is, but like a scrubby. And I'll just scrub off the bits. So I just kind of take the bits off. Everything else, it kind of just becomes part of the stone. So we are at the 3-minute mark, and this is good. So yeah, see this beautiful thing. It got some nice color. Let's cut it. I'm gonna move back here. me take that and cut it in half. You can see, so it puffed enough so you could like open it up. It's too hot now, you have to wait. So you could open it and stuff it, or you can just, you know, rip it off and dip it in the hummus. Yum, yum. So I'll make a couple more of these. But as you're making them, once they're done, you're going to want to cover it with a towel to keep them warm. Let me get. I'm out of towels. So you would cover it to keep it warm. I'll use this one. And again, they're best right out of the oven. Okay, try another one. Let's see how this goes.
Someone asked if you can freeze the dough to use for a future date.
Shoot. Yes, I think you can. I'm trying to think, because I did read about that. I've never done it myself, because it's really not that hard. Like, it's pretty quick, but I do think you can freeze the dough. And I forget if it's in the ball, like if you do the balls. I can look into that, and when they send the recipes out, I can send it out. You also could freeze it once it's been cooked. Just like Trader Joe's, they have frozen naan bread, or do, you know, frozen pita. So cook it and then freeze it. And then you just reheat it. I'd probably just reheat it in like a 350-degree oven. So this one's a little bit bigger than the other one. Okay, I think we're good. So now we're going to put it back. Yeah, just be careful. You know, obviously it's really hot, but if you're just gentle and, you know, I wasn't touching this. You don't want to touch the stone. You don't want to touch the cooking sheet either. But if you just gently, like, lay it down, it just kind of falls off. You know, you won't burn yourself.
So, Katie, there were 2 more questions that just came in. One was, would you use this recipe for naan bread?
Naan bread is a little bit different. It's got, I've never made it before, but I think, does it have yogurt in it? It's a bit of a different dough. Yeah, yogurt and egg, yeah. So it's a little bit different. But one of the differences too, it doesn't like have that puff in the middle. Here, you can see this one's starting to puff now. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's very similar to, you can use it for the same thing, like, you know, naan bread used for Indian food for mopping up sauces. You can use the pita bread for that too.
And the second question was, could you just show the thickness of the rolled dough again?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Oh, now this here, you can see this one is puffing. You see the puffs? That one's getting more of a puff than the other one. But yeah, the next, I'll do another one and I'll show you guys I'll try to get the computer or the laptop angle. Oh yeah, it's getting a really nice puff. You can see that. So here, I'll start rolling out another one while we're waiting. And this one here, I'll do it over here. You can see the baking pita and the one we're rolling out. Yeah, and when you're rolling it, like you can tell it's proofed nicely because you'll notice like little bubbles kind of in the dough. I don't think it's going to come across on the screen, but notice that. Now, this is a bit bigger, so here let me double check my, yeah. So here you can see that. Let me put something, trying to think for comparison. Here's my ruler. Here's my finger. Like you can see, it's pretty thin. It's still workable. So I hope that, does that help?
One person in the chat said 1/4 inch, another person said 1/8 inch. What do you think?
Yeah, you can do between 1/8 and 1/4 inch is fine. I wouldn't go, you know, no bigger than 1/4, no smaller than 1/8. But yeah, 1/8 inch is fine. That works.
And another question just came in. Can you only do one pita at a time?
Okay, good question. So here, look, you can see this one. This one cooked a little too long. That's more browning than I would like, but you can see it got really nice puffing, so that was good. Yes, you can do 2 at a time. But I think for this size, when you break it into the 6, I think that is too big for the stone. If you break it into 8 balls, you can definitely fit 2 at a time. But yeah, you can do. I wouldn't do any more than 2 because that's usually what fits nicely. Right, so I'm going to put this in the oven.
Katie, someone said that it looks beautiful, so even if you thought it cooked a little longer than you'd like.
So I'm going to do this one for 2 minutes. Yeah, so we have pita. And this one here. This one's been cooled a little bit. So you can see, and you can break it apart to stuff. You can use a knife to help. Serrated might be easier, but if it's not naturally puffing, you can just use this to kind of help separate, and then you can, you know, stuff with whatever you want. So yeah, that's a way, you know, if it doesn't puff as much as you'd like. So yeah, very good. And it's, yeah, fresh out of the oven, it's amazing. Okay, so that, you can kind of see that. So yeah, so I think that's, yeah, any other questions? If you have any questions about other Middle Eastern foods, obviously, like I only had time to do the pita and the hummus. I'm trying to think about other things. I like to make tabbouleh. That's really fun to make at home. That's with bulgur grain and a lot of parsley, tomatoes, cucumbers. That's a really nice salad. And that's a really nice salad to serve with the pita. You can kind of eat those alongside each other. Okay, are there any variations for the hummus? Yeah, so hummus is one of those things. I'm sure you see at the store, there's like a lot. Oh, hang on, this one's puffing really well. Yeah, you can get like roasted red pepper, you can get garlic hummus, cilantro hummus, I think you see. So yeah, if you want to add in, like if you want roasted red peppers, just add in some roasted red peppers. You see sometimes like roasted garlic. You could roast garlic. You know, we just use raw garlic and put that in, but you could roast garlic and put that in. Yeah, there's like a lot of ways you could play around with it and kind of make it your own.
Do you ever make stuffed grape leaves?
I do. Yeah, I actually was doing another Middle Eastern class, and I did grape leaves for that. So I've done lamb stuffed before, but those are really fun. And that's a process though. And it's kind of fun if you have people around, like I'll usually get my family involved because it's, you know, a lot of rolling but yeah, they're really good and they're not that hard. They're not that hard to make. And it makes a lot, whatever you make it to, it makes a really big batch. So you'll have them around for a while.
Someone had a 2-part question. They wanted to know where you got the thermometer you used in the beginning.
Mhm.
And is it for water and meats or just liquids?
No, so the Thermapen, this one, look at that. That's the goal, to end up looking like that. And it will, I'll get to that question in just a second. It will deflate, and that's normal, but when it comes out, it looks no, so the Thermapen is here. Thermapen, you can buy these on Amazon. I got it at a cooking store when I was living in London, but yeah, they sell them on Amazon. And you use it for anything. Like you could use it for meats, for liquids, anything you would use. You know, if I'm doing candy stuff, heating sugar, I use it for that. Yeah, you can use it for kind of anything.
There was a creative comment of someone has made pea hummus and they've bought basil hummus.
Yeah. Yeah, the pea hummus, yeah, would be a pretty green color.
Yeah. And there was another question. Do you ever make lamajun?
No, I've not made that. Put that on my list. See, I don't even know what that is.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, sometimes too, when you're in restaurants, you eat things and you don't exactly know the name, so you may not have it.
There was another question. Does the 20-minute rest give the pita more lift?
Yeah, it could, you know, we did 10 minutes, so maybe if it had done 20, and maybe, you know, that one's been sitting a little longer, that could be why it's puffing. So, yeah, there's kind of ways you can play around with it. If you try this and it's not puffing, yeah, one thing, let it rest a little longer, these little dough balls, let those rest. Also make sure your oven is hot enough and you can kind of rest your oven in between making the pitas. I've seen recipes where people like roll it all out at once and then, you know, bake a pita, take it out, put it in. I personally like resting the oven a little bit and letting it get heated up again in between bread, and I feel like that gives better results.
Someone also clarified that a lamajun is like a Turkish pizza, I guess. So
Okay.
that's interesting.
Okay. I've had Turkish pizza, so that's, you've had it. But I'm glad you said that. So that kind of gets me on another topic. So with these breads here, I'll hang on a second. So one thing you can do is, so this one here, let me move the camera, is kind of deflated now. So you can brush it with olive oil and kind of use it as a flatbread. So here, I'll brush it with some olive oil. And then this za'atar spice, this, I think it's Egyptian, I forget, but it's got sesame seeds and other spices. You'll see it at Middle Eastern markets, but you see a lot of flatbread that has this on it. And you just put a little on there and then you can eat this kind of as a flatbread. So that's something else to do with your pita. Yes, okay. Someone asked, I think the name of it's called Thermapen. So Therma, T-H-E-R-M-A, pen, P-E-N, all one word. I saw, was there a question about the spices, I think?
There was a comment that they're available at Penzies.
Oh, za'atar?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And someone that just asked what that was. Again, it's za'atar. I'll type it out in that chat.
Yeah, za'atar. It's Z-A, I don't know if you, I think it's backward. It's Z-A, like apostrophe, A-T-A-R. Yeah, and I got this at a Middle Eastern market. It came in a huge bag, and I've had enough for years. So, but yeah, I typically get most of my spices at Penzies, which they have a store here in Arlington, but then they also have online. And right now, just if anyone's interested, the store isn't open, but you can order online. So.
Someone just said that they're apparently doing curbside in Arlington.
Oh, cool. Okay. Good to know.
And it's also available at Curio Spice Company in Cambridge, which also has online ordering.
Okay, as of today.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, you never know.
And then, well, I'll do the one that just came in since it's relevant. What is the flavor like of za'atar, if you can explain it?
It's kind of like a warm, like it definitely smells a little sesame. I'm trying to think what, but it's kind of mild, earthy. It's not spicy. Yeah, it's just interesting. I'm trying to think what else I use this for. I think you'll see it, like, I think I've used it as on chicken, like to rub on that. You'll see sometimes olive oil, you can just put a little, for dipping, you can kind of do the reverse of this, but have a little bowl with olive oil and sprinkle za'atar on top, and then you dip your bread into that.
Okay.
And time sumac. Okay, well, thanks.
And maybe our last question, since we're approaching 11, can be, how do you store the cooked pita and how long will it stay fresh?
Okay, so I would recommend, like, as you're making it, store it under a towel. That'll keep it warm. Try to eat it right away. If you have leftovers, I would keep them in a plastic bag, because if you keep them in the towel, they're gonna dry out. So overnight, I would just put them in a plastic bag, and then have them probably the next day. Like, they don't last super long; they do get stale. You can try, if they do end up stale, you could try like reheating them in the oven, I think. The other thing you can use, you can break it up and use it in salad. You can do other things with it too if it gets dry. But yeah, I would keep it overnight in a bag. Yeah. Good. So did we get all the?
Yeah, I think we're
I hope everyone feels that it's approachable and it's actually kind of fun, and you can make these things at home. And yeah, I hope you'll get all the recipes with all the steps in case you missed anything in the class. But yeah, they really are easy and fun to make at home. So enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, and thank you Go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, thank you all for tuning in today.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Katie.
And Katie, do you want to just stay for a minute after? Okay.
Thank you, Katie.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.